Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this webinar all about analytics for Servoy. My name is Sean Devlin, and I work in the Professional Services Department at Servoy. Real quick before we begin, in the GoToMeeting console, you'll see an area where you can ask questions at any time. If you have a question during the meeting, the webinar, just enter it in there and I'll try to get to them at the end. Also, if you have problems with audio or something, please let me know. You can click the raise your hand button. So let's begin. So in this presentation, we'll discuss just what exactly are software analytics. We'll look at some use cases for applying analytics. We'll take a look at the Google Analytics platform and what features make it attractive and how that is integrated in analytics for Servoy applications. And of course, we'll do a short demonstration. This whole presentation should probably be less than a half hour. So software analytics is all about gathering metrics from production software. Every application is capable of producing really an ocean of data about click streams, mobile activity, what sort of experiences the end user has, what kinds of transactions they may be processing. And then once all of that data is collected, it can be analyzed to achieve business insights, such as how well is the application performing, what sorts of behaviors the users are taking, what kinds of transactions are happening, quantifying them, etc. And what kind of insights can you gather about your customers? Now, originally, analytics started out for website analysis, analyzing traffic on e-commerce sites and trying to maximize purchases, if you will. However, it extends into business and consumer applications and mobile applications and can even extend into things like middleware where there is no end user. Because the whole goal is to really track and understand application usage. So, really the key use cases for analytics is to understand what features are used in an application or not, how frequently the features are used, who uses them, in what orders or combinations are features being used. And I think a real compelling case for analytics is to reduce the cost of software by reducing unneeded features or underused features. There was a report by, I think, Gartner. It's an older report, but it was up to 42% of CRM features are used never. And that percentage increases if you take into account features which are never or rarely or occasionally used. And this translates into a real cost to the software vendor or to the enterprise because they have to maintain that code base, they have to deploy it, etc. So the total cost of ownership comes into play. Additionally, insights into how end users are working but maybe also misusing the application, using it incorrectly or inefficiently, which could lead to actions in terms of training or redesigning the user experience. So really it comes down to focusing on the right features to make users happier and to increase efficiency in how software is delivered. Another interesting use case for software analytics is actually tracking and reporting billable events. So as software has moved off the desktop and off the site and into the cloud and offered as a service, the business models for software vendors have changed. So monetizing software usage instead of monetizing the user. And this is through metering features and billable events, such as charging per documents uploaded or invoices posted, etc. And this is really ideal for ISVs who are moving to cloud deployments into SaaS business models. And another interesting use case that maybe is not so intuitive, but I think presents an opportunity is to leverage the the backend reporting service and collection APIs of a platform like Google Analytics, to actually send real application data as well. So because you can do manual ad hoc reporting and dashboarding, this is attractive for enterprise applications, for power users, etc. And then you can even use the APIs to retrieve and embed visuals from a given report or chart or metric. So there's the sort of reporting as a service aspect, which I think is also attractive. So a bit more about the Google Analytics platform. It's a robust platform for collecting through an HTTP API and analyzing through a dashboard account and visualizing the metrics. And integrating Google Analytics with Servoy is really easy. So step one, we're now providing a module on GitHub for Servoy applications called SVY Google Analytics. We'll take a look at GitHub real quick when we do the demonstration. So if you obtain that module from GitHub, and then you obtain your Google Analytics tracking code, it's just a simple code that ties your account to any request that you send through their API. So you obtain your tracking code from your Google Analytics account, and then you can just initialize your module with the tracking code and begin using our simple JavaScript API to send your statistics off to the Google Analytics platform to later visualize and analyze. So what's collected by the analytics module? Right now we're starting out with two key entities. Number one is page views, and the other one are events. Page views are traditionally meant for tracking website usage, so real web page views, but this can apply to any Servoy client like Smart Client or mobile client. And they're really just to capture instances of user navigation. So by default, the module doesn't do anything to say what a page view is or is not. That's up to the developer to decide, but you could attach it to form shows or menu selections, anything that you think is worthy of saying that the user has been here can be tracked as a page view. And then there are application events. Again, this is up to the developer to choose what is an event. So for example, running a report, uploading a document, posting an invoice, etc. These could be an event that you would like to track, understand when it's happening, how frequently, etc. I know we're kind of just introducing Google Analytics for Servoy, but there are some upcoming enhancements to the API that I wanted to mention. In preparation for the webinar, I was researching a bit, and there are some Google APIs we want to take advantage of that weren't available when the first version was created. And this includes custom dimensions and custom metrics. A dimension in Google Analytics is sort of a qualitative context about an event. So for example, what the current project is, what the current filter might be, or a current user. Well, user is included in the core API, but you get the idea. These are qualitative contexts about what's happening. And then there are custom metrics that you could define as well. So let's say you're sending, you have marketing software that's sending email campaigns or something. And you want to actually quantify when an event happens, how many recipients were there, how many failed deliveries were there, etc. You can send quantitative data as well to be collected. So I think that's enough background, enough slides. Let's go ahead and get to the demonstration. And as I said, if you have any questions or problems with the presentation, just use the chat panel. I'm going to start first on the GitHub page because I think it's nice to sort of show where this stuff lives. The SVY Google Analytics module is part of a larger initiative at Servoy called the Business Application Platform, where we're trying to provide components that are common to all business applications, both for enterprise and software vendors, as open source, free to use additions to your Servoy application. So this is where the SVY Google Analytics module lives. Now, Git is, as some of you may or may not know, is a source control technology. However, you don't need to be using Git to obtain this module, because if you go to, here's the wiki, which shows some of the documentation on how to use this module. But if you go to the home page, you can see that there's a link there. Sorry, that link wasn't working. You can see that there's a link there, that was the wiki home, for the zip file, which basically contains a Servoy project that you can import directly into Servoy Developer. There's also a SVY Google Analytics demo solution, and that's the same solution that we're going to be showing here in a second. Okay, so let's jump into Servoy, the Servoy web client. I'm going to go in here and launch this demo solution. I'll fire it up here in the web client, although we could also do it in the smart client. This API is client agnostic, and it could even run from a mobile client as well. So the way this is just a really simple solution that in it there's a random seed that either directs you to one form where two products are shown together, or another form where there's a bit of information about each product, and then you can drill in and select which product you want to choose. And so depending on each time you launch the application, you could get a different screen. So you could think of this as an experiment. Let's see how successful we are when we show the two products together on one screen, or when we show them as separate drill downs where they then choose which one they want to purchase. So randomly, we got this one which shows them for drill down. So we could drill into product A and say we want the free trial, or we could decide we go over to product B then and buy the premium. This is again just some arbitrary arbitrary use case, but what we'll see is that all of these navigations and clicks are sending data to the Google Analytics platform. What I'm going to do is close this and try to relaunch, and hopefully randomly we'll get the different page. We did indeed. So this is the other page which shows the two products on the same screen, and then you're free to pick one and the other right there without navigating. So anyway, you can imagine that an application in production is generating lots and lots of click streams, lots and lots of events that we can track. So let's switch over to the Google Analytics management console to start to see this stuff happening. So this is the management console. The first thing to note is the real-time view. So we can see right now there's 2 active users on the site. Because I didn't put any security on this sample solution, each visit here, these are seen as unique visitors, but that's very easy to distill who is arriving new and who is a returning user. So these are seen as 2 unique users because I didn't specify a user ID. But this gives you sort of a real-time view. Usually there's a location showing up. For some reason, I'm not seeing it. I'm in the U.S. Usually there's a big dot here for the user. So apart from the real-time view, we can get down and look at the behavior and drill into those 2 categories I talked about, the page views and the events. A lot of stuff here is more geared towards website analysis and advertising analysis, so I'll stick to just a few of the links here on the menu. So here's the behavior flow, and this is again used commonly for how a user moves through a website, but if you're sending statistics about navigation from a menu or form shows, something like this can really show you how a user may be navigating unnecessarily back and forth between 2 different modules to accomplish some task. So I can highlight, for example, this navigation path and see how they enter the application, where they go, and in red here where they fall off. And as you mouse over, you can see some of the breakdowns there. Now, the other entity that we're tracking are events. So I'll scroll down here to the events area. I'll just drill into some of the top events. Now, the events that I'm sending are from those mouse clicks on those buttons when we're purchasing one of the arbitrary products, right? So they're categorized into categories, and then there's some more data that's being sent about the event. So we could drill into product A or product B when they're purchased. You can see that product B was purchased a total of 11 times, product A a total of 10 times. And if I drill into, say, product B, now you can see the breakdown on trial, enterprise, and premium is 533, etc. Something that's also interesting is you could normalize this by an additional dimension, secondary dimension. So I'm going to type in the word page, and now I can see when the trial version was bought on the layout B versus the trial version which was bought on the layout A, where the products were shown side by side, and I can see that the trial version was more successful. And then I can drill in even further, and get the individual event aggregation. It may be a bit difficult to follow this right here, so I think it's worth also showing some of the dashboarding, because that's a lot more visual and less sort of tabular and numeric. So I'm going up here to the dashboards area, and this is where the Google Analytics user can create their own dashboards. So I've created two custom dashboards, one called Product Insight and one called Traffic. And a dashboard is really just a collection of widgets. So this is the Product Insight. This is a much better way to visualize what I was just discussing. So let's say, from the beginning, I just want to see, hey, which products are being purchased. So we can see that product B was purchased slightly more than product A, but it may be that there's some patterns that I want to drill into. So I have the purchases by product over here, which is showing that, well, product B was purchased more. It was actually just the free trial was really skewing that, and that product A has more of the enterprise version, which costs more. As I drill in, I get a bit more insight into that. This one is another way of looking at the same data. This is purchases by version, and you can see that product B is higher in the trial, and product A is higher in the premium one. So anyway, this is an example of the widgets you can make on events. I'm also going to show you some here over traffic on widgets on page views. You can see on the right-hand side, these are all of the total traffic by forms that I'm capturing. And a bit farther down, I'm showing the actual purchases by page, and this maybe provides a bit more valuable insight into which pages have the most purchases, because we were running an experiment where we show the products together or separate, and we can see that that by far the layout where they were shown, I believe this is together, had more purchases. Over here I was showing the geo analysis where there's the purchases by country. Unfortunately, I couldn't set up any way to simulate being in other countries, but we are sending IP locations automatically through the API, so it's going to show up where the users are. You can see all those 21 purchases were in the US. If I wanted to make a new widget myself, it's very simple. I can go in here, I can select a pie chart, and I can get my event totals or values, etc., and group it by something like custom dimension. So this custom dimension was a custom dimension that I had set up on Google Analytics. I'm not sending data yet through that API. This is what's coming up that I had mentioned. But if I were to make a widget, I can pick one of my own dimensions. So this could be, I want to see total, events where there was a document uploaded and I had a project filter or something like that. And I could have a filter here where I can specify the event category, something like that. So you can see here's the event category. You know, you can use regular expressions, etc. So it's really a great ad hoc reporting tool for getting insight into application usage. Hopefully your imagination is running a bit on what you might do with something like this. But perhaps it's valuable to jump into Servoy Developer and have a look at how we tie this all together, because it's in fact pretty easy. So the first thing that I would point out is that you can see that the module structure here, we have the Google Analytics demo, and here's the Google Analytics core API. There's a single scope in there. We don't need to go into what's in that scope. Only the public methods are what you would be concerned, and we'll see how those are used. On Solution Open, you can see that there's a handler for that where we really have to do two things. One is to set the remote dispatch user. I don't want to get into too much of the details, but it's worth pointing out that that all of the data is sent from the headless client, and this is handled automatically for you. This way, you're not waiting on you know, HTTP requests to come back. Also, you know, it can go in a queue. So if you're really sending a lot of data, it gets queued up on the headless client rather than, you know, running synchronous actually in the end client. So this keeps performance nice and light. And if you want, you can create a user account for that headless client, and this just sets what the user is going to be. More importantly, you have to call the init session and pass in your Google Analytics tracking code. Here I have that stored in just in a constant in this solution. So this is what I was talking about. When you create your Google Analytics account, you get this code, you copy it from the web page, you paste it into your code, you initialize your session, and away you go. You can start sending data. So let's have a look at the two different kinds of data that are sent. I'll come over to one of the forms here. This is where the products were shown together. First of all, we hooked it up simply to the on-show event. And I just call session track page view, and you can pass in what you want for the two parameters. There's the page title and the page that was requested. Really, this would be something like the unique identifier for that form or page, such as the title text or whatever you want to see it as, and then maybe the full path of the form context where it sits in tab panels, etc. But it really could be from a menuing structure as well. So we're not imposing anything on what you send. We're just providing the API to send the page views. So it's really up to the developer. And then tracking events. When a user clicks on one of these buttons, you can see that session track event is called. And there's a lot of optional stuff you can pass in here, but really you can pass in what page you're on, what the page request was, similar to page view. And then the category, the label, the action, and even a value. So here is like $50. So events can also have a quantitative nature as well. They can have a value, so you could also report on, total sales in dollars, euros, or whatever. So really each one of these calls is just one line once you initialize the session. There's some other code here on the screen. Most of that is just having to do with making the demo work. There's really one line of code to initialize the session and one line of code to send data. Our own Servoy framework for navigation and security that some of our customers are using already comes with this built in. You simply just have to plug in your tracking code into the framework properties, and all of the layouts are tracking page views already. So we're already generating usage on how users are moving through applications that use that framework. But you don't have to use the framework to use it. You can plug it in yourself. Well, I think that really concludes the demonstration. I hope that you guys have, in your minds maybe what you would use this for. You have a feel for how easy it is to implement, and you know, you go out and download this, and you try it out and see where it goes. I guess I'll start to answer some questions. I see a few. Okay, here we go. So which versions of Servoy are supported? This is on the 7 branch of Servoy. Also, Servoy 8 would be supported. Really, this is just running out of the headless client, so it doesn't really matter too much about the version or the client that you are running, the end client. So the 7X and the 8 are supported. We haven't tested this with Servoy 6 or 5, but probably those would work as well, although there may be some warnings due to JavaScript. So officially, Servoy 7 and 8 are supported with this component. Another question, is this for Servoy NG or okay for Servoy 7X? So again, it doesn't matter if you're running the NG client or the traditional web or smart client or mobile app client, because the API runs server-side anyway. Although, that said, it does send information about which client is used. I didn't show some of the breakdowns on Google Analytics where you can look at what technology is being used, what browser is being used, etc. But we're parsing the user agent from the web client, sending all of that. From the smart client, we're sending that it's in smart client, etc. So we know quite a bit about the application type that's running. This is sent. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I thank you for attending this webinar. This will be recorded, so if you want to watch this again, see certain parts of it, we'll post this on the forum where to find it. Thanks for your time, and have a great afternoon or evening. Bye-bye.